Hi, I'm your host, Patrick, and today I'm covering Instagram deaths. And honestly, it still horrifies me that the most dangerous thing most people carry fits in their pocket. From a woman who climbed over a 6th-floor railing for one more take, to a woman who read a flash flood warning on camera and walked right past it, ending her content in the craziest way possible. It was September 12, 2018, and warm tropical air drifted through the open-air lobby of a boutique resort tucked into a hillside above Ubud, Bali, where stone pathways wound between infinity pools and tiered villas stacked 6 floors up the slope, each one with a narrow balcony overlooking the valley below. Mivette Ojero was 24 years old and had built a recognizable presence on Instagram almost entirely around one type of photo. Legs over the edge, hotel balconies, rooftops, infinity pool ledges, always the same composition, always shot from behind, always with her feet dangling over open air. She lived in Lyon, France, worked no other job, and earned her income through brand partnerships with clothing and travel companies. She was in Bali on a paid content trip for a swimwear label. Her boyfriend, who traveled with her on every brand trip, was her only photographer. He later told investigators that Mivette never accepted a photo on the first take. Sometimes it took 10, sometimes 15. And even after she approved a photo, she would sometimes change her mind and insist on reshooting it. Once, on a previous trip, she made him reshoot a poolside photo 3 separate times across 2 days because the water behind her kept changing shade depending on the time of day. And I think that's the detail that sets up everything that happens next, because she didn't die taking a photo. She died retaking one she already had, for reasons that wouldn't have shown up in the picture. Their villa sat on the 6th floor of the hillside complex. The balcony was narrow, roughly 4 feet deep, with a waist-high metal railing and a direct view down to a stone pool deck below. Other guests at the resort later told investigators they had seen Mivette sitting on balcony railings on previous days of the trip, legs dangling outward, while her boyfriend crouched low for the upward angle she preferred. None of them reported it to the staff. That afternoon, Mivette climbed over the railing and positioned herself on the exterior side, sitting on the narrow top rail with her legs hanging over the 6-story drop. Her boyfriend stood inside the balcony, holding her phone at a low angle, framing the valley behind her feet. They shot for roughly 10 minutes. He showed her the screen. She approved the photo. She climbed back over the railing to the balcony side. The shoot was done. Then she looked down. The swimming pool directly below their villa was a deep turquoise, lit by the afternoon sun. She told her boyfriend the pool looked better than the valley as a background. He held up the phone and showed her the approved photo next to the pool angle. He later told investigators the 2 backgrounds looked nearly identical on the phone screen. He told her that. She said the turquoise was better. Then she noticed her bikini strap was twisted on her left shoulder. Her boyfriend later told investigators he reminded her that the photo only showed her from the waist down. Her shoulder wasn't in the frame. It had never been in the frame. She said she could tell. She climbed back over the railing, 2nd time. Same position, exterior side, legs dangling, hands gripping the rail behind her. But the pool was on the opposite side of the balcony from where she had been sitting before, and the railing on that side was narrower where it met the building's exterior wall. Before her boyfriend started shooting, she let go of the rail with one hand to fix the twisted bikini strap on her shoulder. Her boyfriend shifted to the new angle and began shooting. She gripped the rail again and adjusted her legs to get the pool centered behind her feet. She shifted her weight to angle her knees outward. Her center of gravity passed beyond the railing's edge. Her boyfriend later described seeing her hands tighten on the rail and her upper body tilt backward in a single motion. One hand came off the rail, then the other. He reached forward. Their fingers did not connect. She fell 6 stories onto the stone pool deck she had wanted as her background. 2 guests at the pool saw the fall. One described the sound, but I'm not going to pass that along. The other told investigators he saw her phone hit the deck a moment later. Her boyfriend had dropped it, reaching for her. She had the photo. It was done. She went back over the railing for a background her boyfriend couldn't tell apart from the first one, and to fix a strap that wasn't even in the frame. Resort staff and a local emergency crew reached her within minutes. She showed no signs of life at the scene. Her death was later confirmed at a hospital in the nearest city. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be severe craniocerebral and thoracic trauma, consistent with a vertical fall onto a stone surface from significant height. The balcony railing showed no structural failure. The railing functioned exactly as designed. It was never meant to be sat on from the outside. The resort quietly conducted an internal review and updated guest materials with language covering balcony use. Mivette's boyfriend later posted the first photo, the one she had already approved, the one with the valley behind her. It became the most shared image on her account. The swimwear label removed her from the campaign page within 48 hours. The photo she died for, the one with the turquoise pool, was never taken. Alright, so this next one is different in a way that made it harder for me to sit with, because she wasn't doing anything reckless for herself. She was putting other people in danger for a photo she'd already written the caption for. It was June 14, 2017, and early evening light stretched long across a marshy meadow at the edge of a lakeside trail in a national park in the northern Rockies, where a cow moose and her calf stood knee-deep in willow scrub, roughly 40 yards from the trailhead parking area, and a handful of tourists watched from the gravel lot with phones raised. Kendall Merriweather was 37 years old, an elementary school reading specialist from a suburb outside Kansas City, and the voice behind a family lifestyle blog she had been growing for a few years. She was visiting the park with her husband and their 2 children, ages 7 and 9, on a summer trip she had been planning for months. A co-worker later told a reporter that Kendall planned every family vacation around content. Before each trip, she printed a shot list sourced from Pinterest. Every photo was labeled with the location, the framing, and the exact caption she planned to post. The moose shot was on the list, labeled with a caption about her kids standing in front of a moose during magic hour. That list was later recovered from her day pack. That's the part I kept getting stuck on during research. She didn't just want the photo, she had already written the words that would go under it. The picture was the last step. Park regulations require visitors to stay at least 25 yards from all wildlife. Signs at the trailhead specifically warn that cow moose with calves are unpredictable and can charge without warning. Multiple visitors in the parking area that evening later described watching Kendall move her children closer in stages, leaving the gravel lot and walking into the meadow grass, repositioning them roughly every 30 seconds, checking her phone screen after each move. 2 separate visitors called out to her that she was too close. One of them later told investigators she waved him off without looking up from the phone. A ranger on a routine vehicle patrol spotted the family and began approaching on foot from the lot. At that point, Kendall handed the phone to her husband and walked forward past her children, positioning herself between them and the cow to adjust the framing. She was facing her family with her back to the animal, roughly 20 feet from the cow. The calf was partially hidden in the willows behind its mother. Another visitor near the lot later told investigators the cow's ears had flattened and the hair on the back of her neck was standing up. He shouted. Kendall did not turn around. She was looking at her phone screen in her husband's hands, directing the angle. The cow charged. 20 feet closed in less than 2 seconds. Kendall turned at the sound of hooves splashing through the marshy grass, but had no time to move. The cow reared and struck her with both front hooves, driving her to the ground. Then she stomped repeatedly. The cow struck Kendall multiple times before turning back toward her calf. Her children watched the entire thing. Her husband dropped the phone and ran to her. The ranger reached her within minutes and began first aid. She was airlifted to a regional trauma center. From the reports I read, she never regained consciousness during the flight. She was pronounced dead at the hospital. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be massive blunt force trauma to the head, chest, and abdomen, including depressed skull fractures, multiple rib fractures, and extensive internal hemorrhaging. Her children were not physically injured. The park issued a safety advisory citing the incident without names. The printed Pinterest shot list was entered into the investigation file. I keep coming back to that list. The photo had a caption before it had a photo. She walked her kids toward an 800-pound animal guarding a calf for a sentence she had already finished writing. So this next one is the story I almost didn't include because it made me angry in a way the others didn't. She read the warning out loud, on camera, and walked right past it. It was July 19, 2019, and late morning sun baked the sandstone walls of a narrow slot canyon in the desert southwest. where the entrance dropped steeply between red rock walls barely 4 feet apart, and the air inside sat 20 degrees cooler than the open desert above. Brisa Montealegre was 29 years old, originally from Guadalajara, Mexico, and had left her job as a dental assistant 18 months earlier to build a career as a travel content creator. She had a modest but growing following and had staked her brand on a specific image: the fearless solo female traveler, alone in extreme landscapes, unbothered. Her younger sister later told investigators that Brisa filmed everything: every trailhead, every permit office, every sign. Her signature move was reading warning signs aloud on camera in an exaggerated horror movie voice, eyes wide, voice trembling, then laughing and walking past them. She had dozens of these videos saved across her account. They were some of her most viewed content. That morning, Brisa arrived at the Slot Canyon trailhead alone. A sign at the entrance warned of the potential for flash flooding in narrow canyons. She filmed herself reading it. The video, recovered later from her phone, shows her holding the camera at arm's length, reading each line in her usual dramatic voice, then smiling and walking past the sign toward the entrance. The sky above the canyon was clear. What the sign was describing is that flash floods in slot canyons do not require rain at the canyon itself. A storm cell 10 or 15 miles upstream, invisible from the canyon floor, can send a wall of water through the drainage with little to no warning at ground level. Brisa entered the canyon and hiked roughly 2 miles in over the following 90 minutes, stopping frequently to film content. Timestamps on recovered video files show her shooting the narrow walls, the light patterns, and several posed photos deep inside the canyon. At roughly 1:40 that afternoon, a storm cell broke over higher terrain miles to the northwest. The sky directly above the canyon was still blue. A hiker near the entrance heard the sound first, a low, sustained roar growing louder from somewhere upstream. He turned and scrambled out. 2 other hikers closer to the mouth made it out within seconds of each other, one of them abandoning a pack on the ground. Brisa was roughly 2 miles in. The flood reached her position in minutes. In a slot canyon, there is no high ground. The walls are vertical, smooth, and too narrow to climb in most sections. The water does not rise gradually. It arrives as a wall, carrying sand, rock, logs, and anything else the current has collected over miles of desert drainage. And that's what I need you to understand about this one. She didn't drown in a river. She was standing in a hallway 3 feet wide when a wall of water filled it floor to ceiling. Her body was recovered the following day roughly a quarter-mile downstream from her last known filming position, buried under several feet of debris. Her phone, sealed in a waterproof case clipped to her pack strap, was recovered with it. The case had held. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be drowning, with contributing blunt force trauma from debris impact. The warning sign video was still saved on her phone as an unsent draft in her stories folder. She had never posted it. It was the last thing she filmed before entering the canyon. From everything I found, she read the exact thing that was about to kill her, in her own voice, on her own camera, and it was content. The sign is still there. The canyon is still open. And I guarantee you someone has filmed that same sign the same way since. This next one sat with me for a while because it's not about someone doing something obviously stupid. It's about a guy who spent thousands of dollars seeing the world through a lens and almost nothing making sure the ground under his feet was solid. It was August 4th, 2016, and late afternoon steam rose from clusters of thermal pools scattered across a wide, pale basin in a geothermal area of a national park, where wooden boardwalks threaded between features and signs at every junction warned visitors to stay on designated paths due to thin, unstable ground crust. Tannen Prideaux was 31 years old, a part-time bartender in Boise, Idaho, who spent every dollar he didn't need on camera equipment. He had a small but dedicated following on Instagram, mostly landscape photography, and had built his portfolio around one specific look: thermal features with no tourists, no boardwalks, no man-made objects in the frame. He owned a camera body and lens kit worth over $4,000. He carried it in a padded case he treated like a child. On his feet, every single hike, he wore $3 rubber flip-flops from a gas station. His friends gave him grief about it constantly. He thought it was funny. His feed was immaculate from the knees up. Below the knees, it was a disaster. That contrast is the thing I keep circling back to, because it tells you everything about how he saw the world. The frame mattered. What was outside the frame didn't. That afternoon, Tannen left the boardwalk. Other visitors later described watching him step off the designated path and walk roughly 20 feet across open ground toward a turquoise thermal pool. Two of them shouted at him. He waved without turning around. He was adjusting his camera settings as he walked. The ground appeared solid, a pale mineral crust that looked no different from the packed soil near the boardwalk. Beneath the crust, the ground was a thin shell over superheated, highly acidic water exceeding 200 degrees. His right foot broke through first. He dropped to his knee instantly, and the surface gave way further beneath his weight. His left leg went through to the thigh. His lower body was submerged in the thermal water from the waist down. Witnesses described hearing him scream before he had fully stopped falling. Steam rose around his torso. The water in that pool was later measured at over 200 degrees, with a pH low enough to cause chemical burns on contact. A visitor on the boardwalk threw a jacket toward him and shouted for others to help. Two men reached the edge of the breach within a minute, staying on firmer ground, and pulled him out by his arms. His flip-flops were gone, lost in the water. The skin on both legs was already changing color. He was conscious, shaking violently, unable to stand. I've read the witness descriptions from the investigation file, and the detail that stays with me is that he didn't let go of the camera. Both legs in boiling water, screaming, and his hands were locked around a $4,000 camera body he never set down. Even coming out of the water, they had to pry it from his grip before they could lay him flat. Park rangers arrived within minutes and called for an air ambulance. He was airlifted to a regional burn center. Doctors assessed extensive full-thickness thermal and chemical burns to the lower body and torso. The acidic water had caused damage that continued progressing even after removal. He was placed in a medically induced coma. His condition deteriorated rapidly as his kidneys and liver began to fail. He died roughly 52 hours after the initial submersion. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be multi-organ failure secondary to the burns. He never regained consciousness after being sedated. The Park Service reinforced interpretive signage at the basin and increased ranger patrol frequency in that section. Tannen's camera was recovered at the edge of the collapse site where it had fallen when responders took him. The memory card was destroyed by heat and chemical exposure. His Instagram bio, as of the last time anyone checked, still referenced shooting from the ground up. I don't think he ever meant it literally, but that's how it ended. Alright, so this next one is the one from this entire video I keep going back to, because the thing that killed him was something he brought with him. Something he put on his own head every single time he shot content. And the worst part is, it was his brand. It was February 11th, 2019, and the last blue light of dusk settled over a steel railway bridge spanning a wide, slow river valley in a rural stretch of southern India, where the bridge's riveted iron trusses glowed faintly orange from the sun, dropping behind low hills to the west. Jorrit Spinhoven was 22 years old and had built a growing following on Instagram around one concept: setting up his camera in places you are not supposed to be. Active rail bridges, restricted rooftops, fenced-off industrial sites. He was from Utrecht in the Netherlands and had dropped out of a photography program after a single post of a long exposure shot from the middle of an active rail line went viral. Every shoot after that was the same formula. Find a restricted location, set up his tripod somewhere dangerous, shoot a long exposure at dusk. His signature, the thing his followers recognized instantly, was the industrial over-ear hearing protection he wore in every single photo and video. Thick, foam-padded industrial muffs rated for construction sites. They started as a practical choice, blocking out noise so he could focus on composition. But they became his brand. His followers called him the silent shooter. He wore them in every reel, every story, every shoot. And that's the thing I need you to sit with, because the hearing protection wasn't just gear, it was content, it was the image, and it's the reason he's dead. Jorrit was 3 months into a solo backpacking trip through southern India, shooting content for a series he had been promoting to his followers for weeks. That evening, he set up a tripod on the rail bridge roughly 200 feet from the near bank. The bridge was active, carrying freight and passenger trains on a regular schedule. Pedestrian access was technically prohibited, but there were no physical barriers. Locals in the nearest village later told investigators that people walked across regularly, timing their crossings between trains. Jorit was not timing anything. He was composing a shot. The tripod was centered between the rails. His camera was set for a long exposure. He was wearing the hearing protection, and this is where the sequence narrows down to what physical evidence and the train operator's statement can tell us. The freight train approached from the east at what the operator later estimated was roughly 40 miles per hour. The operator sounded the horn at the standard distance, then again closer, then continuously. Jorit did not react. The hearing protection reduced the horn to a muffled sound, competing with wind and the ambient noise of dusk on an open bridge. He may have heard something. He did not respond to it. The vibration through the steel bridge deck reached his hands and feet before his brain connected the muffled sound to what it meant. By the time he registered it, the train was already close. The operator told investigators he saw a figure stand upright from a crouched position and reach toward the ground, toward the tripod. He did not see the figure move off the tracks. There was no time. The train could not stop in time. The horn never stopped blowing. What I keep thinking about is that moment, the vibration in his hands. He felt it, he knew, and his first instinct was to reach for the camera, not to run. The bridge was roughly 12 feet wide. The train occupied the center. A few steps to either side, he would have been standing on the maintenance walkway. A few steps. That's what the hearing protection cost him. Jorit was struck and killed instantly. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be massive blunt force polytrauma consistent with high-speed locomotive impact. His hearing protection was recovered on the bridge deck, roughly 15 feet from the tripod, still intact. The camera and tripod were destroyed. The investigation classified the death as accidental trespassing on active rail infrastructure. No criminal charges were filed against the rail operator. His account remained active for months after his death. The last post, uploaded the day before the incident, was a behind-the-scenes reel of him walking onto a different bridge at sunset, muffs on, tripod over his shoulder. This last one is the story I chose to end on, and it's for a reason. There's no dramatic fall from a balcony, no animal charge, no wall of water. There's just a woman standing 2 feet past a rope line, holding up her phone, counting locations, and then the ground disappears. It was June 8, 2015, and a bright, windless morning lit the surface of a glacier on the southern coast of Iceland in hard white light, where a guided group of 11 hikers in rented crampons and helmets moved in a loose line across ice that shifted in color from pale blue to deep gray, depending on how the sun hit the ridges. Anuja Karmarkar was 34 years old, a software project manager from Pune, India, between jobs and 3 weeks into a solo trip through Iceland. She had no particular interest in glaciers. She had a particular interest in her count. Anuja kept a running tally on her phone's notes app of every unique location she had ever posted from on Instagram. Every caption included the number. Location number 32, location number 41, location number 46. After every post, she texted the updated number to her mother back in Pune. Her mother had received number 46 2 days before the glacier hike. The glacier was going to be number 47. That was why she was there. Not for the ice, not for the view, for the number. And the thing about that detail is, it tells you she wasn't thinking about where she was. She was thinking about where she'd been and how many places that was, and how the next number would look in a caption. The glacier wasn't a glacier, it was a digit. The guided hike was run by a small local outfitter that had operated glacier tours for over a decade. Safety briefings before departure covered crevasse danger and the instruction to stay within arm's reach of the guide at all times. Rope lines marked the boundary of safe travel near any visible crevasse zones. Roughly 90 minutes into the hike, the group paused at a rest point near a crevasse field. Orange rope lines marked the edge of the safe zone. The crevasse was visible, a dark gap in the ice roughly 8 feet wide at the surface, narrowing as it dropped. The guide was answering questions from 2 clients on the far side of the group. Anuja drifted toward the rope line. Another hiker in the group later told investigators she watched Anuja step over the rope, phone already raised, and take 2 steps onto a section of ice beyond the boundary. The ice looked solid. It was not solid. It was a thin shelf overhanging the crevasse edge, undercut from below by melt patterns invisible from the surface. She took a 3rd step, and the shelf collapsed. The guide heard the sound, a hollow crack followed by the rush of falling ice fragments, and reached the edge within seconds. He could not see her from the surface. The crevasse dropped roughly 60 feet before narrowing to less than 2 feet across. He shouted down and heard nothing back. He radioed for rescue immediately. A technical rescue team reached the site within 90 minutes. They rigged a rope system and sent a rescuer into the upper portion of the crevasse. The walls narrowed severely below the 20-foot mark, making further descent extremely dangerous and extraction unfeasible within any survivable window. He could not see the bottom. He could not hear anything from below. The temperature inside the crevasse sat below freezing year-round. Weather on the surface deteriorated through the early afternoon, further compounding the rescue effort. The team remained on site for over 3 hours. They could not reach her. The guide sat near the crevasse edge the entire time, according to other members of the group, and did not speak for the duration of the rescue attempt. Authorities later concluded the presumed cause of death to be severe hypothermia, with contributing traumatic injuries sustained during the fall. In glacier conditions at that depth, loss of consciousness from hypothermia was estimated at under 2 hours. Investigators believed the initial impact was survivable. What followed was not. I spent a long time with that detail, longer than any other in this video, because of what it means. She was most likely alive at the bottom of that crevasse, in the dark, alone, with a broken body and walls of ice pressing in on every side, and the number that put her there, number 47, never got posted. Her mother never received it. She is still waiting for it. The guide company revised its safety briefings to include explicit descriptions of crevasse fall consequences and added dedicated spotters during all rest stops near crevasse zones. Anuja's phone was recovered on the lip of the crevasse where it had landed when the shelf gave way. It was still open to the Notes app. The cursor was blinking after the number 46.